You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. What if I told you that the pain of betrayal is what's destroying your peace, but your desire for revenge is? Betrayal cuts deep. It shakes your trust, bruises your pride, and leaves your mind replaying the moment over and over again. You imagine what you should have said, what you could have done, how you might even the score. And for a split second, revenge feels powerful. It feels justified. But here's the truth the Stoics understood centuries ago. Revenge keeps you emotionally chained to the very person who hurt you. In this video, you'll discover the Stoic method for healing betrayal without becoming bitter, reactive, or consumed by anger. You'll learn how to reclaim control of your mind, protect your dignity, and turn pain into personal power. This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about mastering them. It's about rising above the chaos with calm strength. Stay with me until the very end, because the final principle may completely change how you see betrayal and how you choose to respond to it for the rest of your life. Number 1, accept the pain without dramatizing it. Accepting the pain without dramatizing it begins with a decision, not a loud one, not a defiant declaration to the world, a quiet decision inside you. You choose to feel what hurts without turning it into a spectacle in your own mind. Betrayal stings, sometimes it burns, sometimes it lingers like a dull ache under the skin. But the Stoic path asks you to experience that sensation without layering it with stories, fantasies of revenge, or exaggerated conclusions about what it means. You don't deny the wound. You simply refuse to pour gasoline on it. This is harder than it sounds. Your mind wants to narrate. It wants to replay. It wants to sharpen the memory, add dramatic music, build a courtroom in your head where you are both the prosecutor and the victim. But listen closely to what Epictetus reminds you. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Read that again. The event has already occurred. The betrayal is in the past. What remains active, alive, even, is your interpretation. And that is within your control. You must train yourself to separate the raw fact from the emotional embroidery. The fact might be simple. Someone acted in a way that violated your trust. That is the clean wound. The dramatization is everything else you attach to it. This always happens to me. I can never trust anyone again. They ruined my life. Notice how quickly the mind leaps from one person's action to sweeping, catastrophic conclusions. That leap is optional. You can stop it. So pause. Sit with the discomfort without trying to magnify it or escape it. When the ache surfaces, don't suppress it, but don't narrate it either. Feel it in your body. Is it tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, a heaviness behind your eyes? Stay there. Breathe slowly. Inhale through your nose, steady and deliberate. Exhale longer than you inhale. You are not trying to get rid of the pain. You are proving to yourself that you can contain it without theatrics. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Strength here does not mean numbness. It does not mean pretending you are unaffected. It means refusing to let your mind turn pain into identity. Betrayal is something that happened to you. It is not who you are. The more you dramatize it, the more it fuses with your sense of self. The calmer you remain, the more it becomes an experience you endured and survived. You need discipline here. The discipline to interrupt rumination. When you catch yourself replaying the scene for the 10th time, gently but firmly say, "Enough." Not angrily, just decisively. Redirect your attention to what is within your influence right now, your breathing, your posture, the task in front of you. This is not avoidance, it is mastery. You are refusing to rehearse suffering. Seneca, the Roman Stoic, warned against adding unnecessary weight to unavoidable hardship. He wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that. The initial betrayal may have lasted minutes, maybe hours. But the imagined conversations, the internal arguments, the hypothetical revenge scenarios, those can stretch for weeks, months. You extend the life of the injury every time you feed it with mental drama, so stop feeding it. Here's a practical exercise. Practice what the Stoics called objective representation. When the memory surfaces, describe it in the plainest language possible. Strip it of adjectives. Remove the emotional coloring. Reduce it to bare facts. This exercise feels almost clinical, and that is the point. You are retraining your mind to see clearly instead of theatrically. Do this daily, even if it feels mechanical at first, especially if it feels mechanical. You are building a new habit. Another exercise, negative visualization, but with a twist. Instead of imagining revenge or vindication, imagine yourself responding with calm restraint. See yourself composed. See yourself steady. Feel the weight of your own self-control. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that other people act out of ignorance, confusion, or flawed judgment. You don't have to excuse their behavior, but you can understand that it arises from their character, not from a cosmic plot against you. This reframing drains the drama from the situation. It turns betrayal from a grand tragedy into a human failing. And here is something you must accept. Pain is not a signal that you should retaliate. It is a signal that something you valued was disrupted. That's all. The Stoic method asks you to honor that value without losing your balance. You can say to yourself, "This hurt because I value loyalty." Good. That means you are someone who values loyalty. Do not corrupt that value by reacting in a way that contradicts it. When you feel the urge to dramatize, when you want to vent, lash out, craft the perfect cutting response. Pause for 90 seconds. Set a timer if you have to. For those 90 seconds, do nothing but breathe and observe your thoughts as if they belong to someone else. You will notice how intense they are at first, how persuasive, how urgent. Then slowly they soften, not because the situation changed, but because emotions crest and fall if you don't amplify them. You are learning to ride the wave instead of drowning in it. This doesn't mean you minimize what happened. Stoicism is not passivity. It is clarity. You can choose boundaries. You can withdraw trust. You can make decisions about the future, but you do so from a place of steadiness, not spectacle. Revenge thrives on dramatization. Healing requires sobriety. Tell yourself the truth. The more dramatic you make your suffering, the more control you hand to the person who hurt you. Every exaggerated thought is another thread tying you to them. Do you want that? Or do you want freedom? Accepting the pain without dramatizing it is an act of rebellion against your own worst impulses. It is you saying, "I will not let this define my inner world." So practice restraint in your language, even in private. When you journal, avoid absolute words like always and never. Avoid catastrophic phrasing. Write calmly, write precisely. Precision calms the nervous system. Drama inflames it. You are choosing calm. Remember what Epictetus taught. You cannot control the behavior of others, only your response. Let that be your anchor. Let that be the sentence you return to when the mind tries to spiral. Say it until it feels solid. You are not weak for feeling hurt. You are powerful when you feel it without collapsing into it. You are strong when you refuse to decorate your pain with bitterness. You are disciplined when you sit with discomfort and do not demand immediate emotional justice. Start today. The next time the memory surfaces, do not suppress it. Do not dramatize it. Breathe. Observe. Name the facts. Release the exaggerations. Repeat. This is training. This is inner conditioning. And with each repetition, you will notice something subtle but profound. The pain loses its sharp edges. It becomes information instead of identity, experience instead of narrative. That is how you heal without revenge. Not by pretending it didn't hurt, not by retaliating, but by mastering the one domain that has always been yours, your mind. Number 2, separate what happened from the story you're telling yourself. When you feel betrayed, the first wound isn't just what happened, it's the story that blooms around it. The mind moves fast, faster than your breath, faster than your reason. An event occurs. Words are said, trust fractures. And almost instantly, you begin narrating. You start stitching meaning onto the raw fabric of the moment. This is where your real power begins, not in undoing what was done, not in punishing, not in rehearsing revenge, but in learning to separate the clean facts from the storm of interpretation swirling around them. The Stoics were relentless about this distinction. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us but our judgments about them." Read that slowly. Things, judgments, two different categories. You must train yourself to see that difference as clearly as black ink on white paper. What happened is one thing. What you are telling yourself about what happened is another. If you don't consciously divide them, they fuse together. And once fused, they feel inseparable, like the pain is baked into reality itself. But it is. You have to pause and ask with deliberate calm, what are the bare facts? Strip them down, remove adjectives, remove emotional coloring, remove conclusions. What remains? Usually far less than you thought. A behavior, a choice, a statement. That's it. Everything else, the meaning, the assumptions about motives, the predictions about the future, that's the narrative layer. That's yours, and this is good news, because you cannot change what occurred, but you can absolutely reshape the story you're feeding yourself about it. Right now, your mind may be spinning phrases like, "They never cared," "I was a fool," "This proves I can't trust anyone." Notice how total those statements are. They're absolute. They stretch the event into a philosophy of life. That's the mind's dramatic instinct. It wants coherence. It wants a sweeping tale, but Stoicism asks you to resist that impulse. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Your estimate, that's the lever. So here's your first practice. Write the event down in one sentence using only observable facts. Not why it happened, not what it means, just what occurred. Then underneath it, write the story you've been telling yourself. Be honest, expose it, see how different the two lines look. One will be compact and almost clinical. The other will be charged, sprawling, emotional. That contrast is your doorway back to clarity. You must learn to sit with the facts without immediately decorating them. This is uncomfortable at first. Your ego wants drama. It wants justification for anger. It wants a villain and a victim. But Stoic discipline calls you higher. It asks you to look at reality without embroidery. Seneca warned that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Betrayal hurts, yes, but the secondary suffering, the endless replaying, the mental courtroom, the imagined speeches, that's optional. Pain may be unavoidable, prolonged torment is usually self-authored. This doesn't mean you suppress emotion. It means you examine it. You say to yourself, "I feel anger." Not, "This is unforgivable." You say, "I feel hurt." Not, "This proves I am unworthy." Do you see the shift? One keeps you grounded in present experience. The other leaps into identity and destiny. Stoicism is about precision, emotional precision, intellectual precision. You owe yourself that clarity. Another exercise, when a thought about the betrayal arises, label it. Simply say in your mind, interpretation. Not as an accusation, but as a gentle reminder. Interpretation. Do this repeatedly. Over time, you'll start catching the story before it runs away with you. You'll feel the surge of narrative forming, and instead of diving in, you'll step back. That space is freedom. And in that space, revenge loses its grip. Revenge feeds on narrative. It needs the story of injustice. It thrives on the idea that balance must be restored through retaliation. But when you reduce the event to its factual core, something shifts. You begin to see that seeking revenge is just another chapter in the story you're writing. It doesn't undo what happened. It simply extends your attachment to it. Stoicism invites you to ask a different question. What response strengthens my character? Because that is the only domain you truly control. You cannot control another person's choices. You never could. Epictetus was clear. Some things are up to us and some are not. Their betrayal, not up to you. Your response, entirely yours. When you blur those categories, you suffer. When you clarify them, you stabilize. Take 5 minutes daily to rehearse this separation. Close your eyes. Recall the event. State it plainly in your mind. Then observe the emotional commentary that follows. Don't fight it, just notice it. Then gently peel it away and return to the facts. This is mental training. Repetition builds strength. At first, the story will feel louder than the facts. Eventually, the facts will stand firm and the story will appear as what it is, just one possible interpretation among many. Here's something else you must confront. The story often centers you as powerless. It says you were blindsided, deceived, humiliated. It frames you as acted upon. But the Stoic path doesn't deny vulnerability, it transforms it. You were affected, yes, but you are not defined. An event happened, it does not rewrite your nature. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that others would act out of ignorance or self-interest. He prepared his mind for human imperfection. You can do the same. When you detach the story of personal affront from the simple fact of flawed behavior, the sting softens. Ask yourself, is the story helping me grow stronger or is it tightening the wound? Be ruthless in this evaluation. If your narrative fuels bitterness, it's not serving you. If it reinforces dignity, calm, and self-respect, keep it. You are allowed to revise your internal script. In fact, you must. This is not denial, it's refinement. It's choosing accuracy over exaggeration. It's choosing discipline over indulgence, and it takes practice, daily practice. You won't get it perfect. Sometimes the story will flood back in with sharp edges. That's fine. Notice it again. Separate it again. Each repetition weakens its hold. Over time, something remarkable happens. The betrayal becomes a fact in your history, not an active flame in your present. The story loses its emotional charge. It becomes quieter, simpler, almost neutral. And when that happens, revenge feels unnecessary. Not because you forced yourself to forgive, but because you reclaimed authorship of your own mind. You are not obligated to carry a dramatic interpretation forever. You are not required to let one event define your worldview. You can choose restraint. You can choose clarity. You can choose to respond in a way that aligns with your values rather than your impulses. That is strength. Quiet, unshakable strength. So begin today. Separate the event from the narrative. Write it down. Label your interpretations. Practice daily mental distinction. Question sweeping conclusions. Reclaim your agency. The Stoic method isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about refusing to let your imagination multiply the damage. What happened is fixed. The story is flexible. Choose wisely. Number 3, control your response, not their behavior. When someone betrays you, your first instinct is to reach outward. You want to correct them, confront them, expose them, punish them, make them understand. Your mind starts rehearsing arguments. Your chest tightens with the need to set the record straight. But this is the moment where Stoicism quietly steps in and whispers something radical. Control your response, not their behavior. You cannot reach into another person's mind and rearrange it. You cannot edit their character. You cannot force remorse. What you can shape, what is entirely, fiercely yours, is your own reaction, and that is where your power lives. Epictetus said in the Enchiridion, "Some things are up to us and some are not." You've heard this before, but now you must live it. Their betrayal is not up to you. Their apology is not up to you. Their conscience is not up to you. Your thoughts, your interpretations, your next move, that is up to you. And if you can train yourself to pause in that burning instant and ask, what part of this is actually mine to command? You begin to reclaim your stability. You stop being dragged. You stand. You may feel a surge of anger. That's natural. Stoicism never asked you to be a stone. It asks you to be sovereign. There's a difference. Anger can arise without your permission, but whether it rules you, that is your decision. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Read that slowly. You have power over your mind, not their actions, not the past, not the betrayal itself, just your mind, and that is enough. Right now, you must train yourself to separate stimulus from response. Betrayal happens. Then your interpretation rushes in. It says, "This is unforgivable," or "This proves I'm a fool," or "I'll make them regret this." Those thoughts feel automatic, but they are not sacred. They are impressions, and Stoics were relentless about questioning impressions. Before you accept a thought as truth, examine it. Ask yourself, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release it. Not dramatically. Not with fanfare, just loosen your grip. This is a discipline. It won't feel natural at first. You may want revenge because revenge promises relief. It suggests balance will be restored if pain is returned, but look deeper. Revenge still keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. You are reacting. You are orbiting their behavior. You are letting them dictate your inner climate. That is not strength. That is dependency disguised as power. The Stoic path is harder and quieter. It asks you to withdraw your emotional investment from what you cannot govern. Seneca warned that anger is a form of temporary madness. Think about that. Temporary madness. When you allow someone else's behavior to steer your state, you hand them the wheel. And the Stoic refuses to surrender the wheel. You do not deny that you were hurt. You simply decide that your dignity will not be dictated by another's flaws. You anchor yourself in what you can choose. Your words, your silence, your standards, your next step. Start small. When the urge to react rises, pause, literally pause, take one slow breath, then another. Create space between the event and your interpretation. In that space, ask yourself a question that cuts through emotion. What response aligns with the person I want to become? Not the person who was wronged. The person you are building. This shift is powerful. It moves you from reaction to intention. You must also practice cognitive reframing. This is not denial. It is strength through perspective. Betrayal can be seen as proof that others are unreliable, or it can be seen as proof that character matters and you will not compromise yours. The event is fixed. The meaning is flexible. Train yourself to choose the meaning that reinforces your values instead of eroding them. This is how you heal without revenge. You stop asking, how do I make them feel what I felt? And start asking, how do I remain who I am? Another exercise. Each night reflect as Marcus did. Mentally replay the moment of betrayal or the thoughts that followed. Notice where your mind wandered into fantasy arguments or imagined punishments. Do not judge yourself, just observe. Then calmly rewrite your internal script. Imagine responding with restraint. Imagine speaking less. Imagine walking away with composure. This mental rehearsal strengthens your capacity for control. You are training your nervous system to favor steadiness over explosion. You should also write down 2 columns. In one, list everything about the situation that you cannot control, their choices, their motives, the opinions of others, the past. In the other, list what you can control, your boundaries, your tone, your time, your energy, your focus. Keep this list visible. When resentment resurfaces, and it will, look at those columns. Redirect yourself deliberately toward the second list. That is your territory. Govern it well. Understand something crucial. Controlling your response does not mean tolerating mistreatment. It means acting from principle instead of impulse. You may choose distance. You may choose silence. You may choose a firm boundary, but you will not choose chaos. Your reaction will be measured, not because you are weak, but because you are disciplined. There is immense intimidation in calm self-possession. It communicates that your equilibrium is not easily disturbed. And here is the deeper truth. When you focus on your response, you begin to outgrow the betrayal. The pain loses its sharpness because you are no longer feeding it with rumination. You are investing your energy in self-mastery instead. That shift is transformative. You start to see that the betrayal revealed something about them, not about your worth. You stop personalizing what was ultimately a reflection of their character. Remind yourself daily of this Stoic maxim. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That idea, echoed from Epictetus through Marcus, is your lever. Change the judgment and the disturbance softens. You may still feel sadness. That's human, but you won't be ruled by the need to retaliate. So when the impulse for revenge flickers, do not suppress it with force. Acknowledge it. Then say to yourself, calmly and firmly, I choose self-command. Repeat that phrase if you must. Make it a habit. The more often you practice redirecting your energy inward, toward discipline, clarity, restraint, the more natural it becomes. Over time, you will notice something surprising. The desire to control them fades. The need for revenge dissolves. What remains is a steady, grounded sense of self-respect. You cannot rewrite what happened. You cannot choreograph their remorse. But you can decide that your inner world will not be vandalized by someone else's failure. That decision is yours every single day. And when you consistently choose your response over their behavior, you step into a kind of quiet strength that no betrayal can take from you. Number 4, refuse the impulse for revenge. When betrayal hits you, it doesn't knock politely. It floods your chest, tightens your jaw, and sets your mind on fire with one primitive urge: make them pay. You feel it before you think it. That sudden craving to even the score, to restore balance through retaliation. And here is where your real work begins, not with them, with you. The Stoic path asks something difficult but liberating. Refuse the impulse for revenge, not suppress it, not deny it, refuse it. See it clearly, feel its heat, and decide that it does not get to command you. You have to understand something first. Revenge feels powerful, but it is reactive. It is the mind surrendering its sovereignty to someone else's actions. When you plot retaliation, you are still orbiting the person who hurt you. Your emotional world spins around their mistake. That's not strength, that's captivity. The Stoics were relentless about this. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Read that slowly. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. That means your integrity matters more than your anger. Your character outweighs your wounded pride. Right now, you may feel justified. Of course you do. Betrayal cuts at trust, and trust is sacred. But Stoicism does not deny the sting. It simply asks, what is within your control? You cannot control what they did. You cannot rewrite it. You cannot reach back into the past and prevent it. What you can control is your response. Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That isn't a soft sentiment. It's a demand, a call to discipline. The event is external. Your judgment about it is internal. Revenge begins as a judgment. This must be punished. Challenge that judgment. Is it necessary? Is it virtuous? Or is it just wounded ego wearing armor? You need to pause, not for a second, for real. Create space between the injury and your reaction. When the urge to retaliate rises, don't argue with it, observe it. Say to yourself, this is anger. This is the desire for revenge. Label it. The moment you name it, you create distance. You are no longer drowning in the emotion, you are studying it. That's Stoic practice in action. You are stepping into the role of the rational observer. Try this. Breathe in slowly for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. Do it again and again. Let your nervous system settle. This is not weakness. This is training. You are teaching your body that it does not need to launch an attack to survive. You are reclaiming authority over yourself. Seneca warned about anger more fiercely than almost any other emotion. In On Anger, he called it a kind of temporary madness. Madness. Think about that. When revenge tempts you, you are flirting with irrationality. Anger promises clarity. I know exactly what to do, but it distorts perception. It narrows your world until all you can see is the offense. Refusing revenge is not about moral superiority, it's about sanity. And here's the deeper truth. Revenge does not heal betrayal, it prolongs it. It keeps the wound open because you revisit it, rehearse it, relive it. You replay the betrayal in your mind while constructing your counterattack. You bind yourself to the pain. Stoicism invites you to cut that cord, not by pretending it didn't hurt, but by choosing a higher standard for your behavior. Ask yourself this question: who do you want to become because of this? Not what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? A person ruled by impulse, or a person defined by inner steadiness? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that other people would act selfishly, ignorantly, even cruelly. He prepared his mind in advance. You can do the same. Say to yourself each morning, today I may encounter betrayal, dishonesty, or disrespect, and I will meet it with composure. This is mental rehearsal. It strengthens you before the next test arrives. Refusing revenge also requires reframing. Instead of seeing betrayal as proof that the world is hostile, see it as training. Stoics viewed adversity as a forge. The fire is not there to destroy you, it is there to refine you. You have been given an opportunity to practice restraint, dignity, and emotional mastery. That may sound lofty. Good, aim high. You are building character under pressure. Here's another exercise. Write down exactly what revenge would accomplish. Be honest. Would it restore your peace? Would it erase the event? Or would it create new consequences, new conflicts, new disturbances? Then write down what refusing revenge accomplishes. Self-respect, clarity, freedom from obsession. The contrast will become obvious. You must also confront the illusion of justice. Revenge often disguises itself as fairness. They deserve it, you tell yourself. Maybe they do, but Stoicism separates justice from vengeance. Justice is measured, rational, aligned with virtue. Revenge is personal, emotional, excessive. You are not the universe's executioner. Your responsibility is to your own moral compass. Let external consequences unfold as they will. Focus on your conduct. This doesn't mean you tolerate mistreatment or abandon boundaries. On the contrary, refusing revenge allows you to act with precision. You can withdraw your trust. You can change your behavior. You can distance yourself. You can speak calmly and directly, all without hatred corroding your insides. That is strength. Cold, steady, unshakable strength. Remind yourself often your peace is more valuable than your pride. Pride demands repayment. Peace demands release. Which one will you protect? You cannot hold both revenge and tranquility in the same hand. One must be dropped. Practice voluntary restraint in small things to build this muscle. When you want to respond instantly to a minor irritation, wait. When you feel misunderstood, pause before correcting. Train yourself to endure small discomforts without reaction. These micro-disciplines prepare you for larger betrayals. Self-control is like any skill. It grows with repetition. And when your mind drifts back toward revenge, as it will, redirect it, not forcefully, firmly. Say, that path does not serve me. Then shift your focus to something constructive, your goals, your work, your growth. Channel the energy into improvement. Betrayal can become fuel. Let it sharpen you rather than embitter you. You are not denying your pain. You are transforming it. That is the Stoic method. You take what is outside your control and you convert it into an opportunity for virtue. You choose courage over resentment, wisdom over reaction, discipline over drama. Remember this: the person who betrayed you does not control your character unless you hand it over. Do not hand it over, guard it fiercely. Your integrity is your fortress. No one can breach it without your permission. So when the impulse for revenge surges, stand still, feel it, acknowledge it, and then deliberately refuse it. Not because you are weak, because you are strong enough to rise above it. Because you understand that true power is self-mastery. Because you refuse to let someone else's wrongdoing dictate the quality of your soul. This is your moment, not to strike back, but to stand taller. Number 5, reclaim your self-respect through discipline. When you've been betrayed, your first instinct might be to strike back, to restore your dignity by proving you can wound as deeply as you were wounded. But that urge, as fierce and justified as it may feel, does not rebuild your self-respect. The Stoic path asks something harder of you. It asks you to turn inward and reclaim your ground through discipline. Not punishment, not bitterness, discipline. And that begins the moment you decide that your character will not be shaped by someone else's failure. You don't regain self-respect by obsessing over what was done to you. You regain it by deciding who you are going to be now. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You've read that before. Maybe you've even nodded at it. Now you have to live it. Your pain is real, but it is not a command. It does not get to dictate your habits, your tone, your sleep schedule, your focus, your future. The betrayal may have disrupted your trust, but it doesn't get to disrupt your discipline unless you let it. So don't. Start small. That's where dignity is rebuilt, not in grand speeches or dramatic exits, but in quiet consistency. Wake up when you say you will. Move your body even when you don't feel like it. Keep your word to yourself, especially when no one else is watching. When you follow through on these simple acts, you send yourself a message: I am still in control of my choices. And control, even in fragments, restores something solid inside you. Every completed promise becomes a brick. Lay enough bricks and you've rebuilt your foundation. You may feel scattered right now. Betrayal does that. It shakes your sense of reality, makes you question your judgment. So you counter that chaos with structure. Create a daily rhythm. Decide when you work, when you reflect, when you rest. Write it down. Then follow it, not rigidly but faithfully. Discipline is not about perfection, it's about repetition. You're training your nervous system to understand that stability still exists, and it begins with you. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Let that line settle in your chest. You cannot undo what happened. You cannot rewrite someone else's character, but you can govern your own. And that governance is your throne. Sit in it, even when you feel small, especially then. One practical exercise each morning before you check your phone or replay the story in your head: sit still for 5 minutes, just 5. Breathe slowly. Then ask yourself, what is within my control today? Write down 3 things. Only 3. They must be actionable and specific, not emotional outcomes, but behaviors. For example, complete my workout, respond calmly to messages, finish one meaningful task, then do them. At the end of the day, review. Did you act according to your intention? If yes, you win. If not, you adjust without self-hatred. This is how you rebuild trust with yourself, because that's the deeper wound, isn't it? Betrayal doesn't just break trust in others. It cracks your trust in your own perception. You might question your instincts, your judgment, your strength. Discipline answers that doubt. Every time you choose restraint over retaliation, you prove that you are not ruled by impulse. Every time you keep your composure, you affirm that your values are stronger than your emotions. And that quiet affirmation grows. You must also discipline your thoughts. This is not about suppression, it's about direction. When your mind begins to rehearse revenge fantasies or spiral into resentment, gently interrupt it. Not angrily, not forcefully, just firmly. Say to yourself, "This does not serve my character." Then redirect your attention to something constructive: reading, learning, building, practicing. Seneca warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Don't let imagination keep reopening a wound that discipline is trying to close. Another exercise: practice voluntary discomfort. Once a day, choose something slightly uncomfortable and do it willingly: a cold shower, a difficult workout, fasting for a short period, or tackling the hardest task first. Why? Because you're reminding yourself that you can endure. Betrayal tries to convince you that you are fragile. Voluntary hardship teaches you that you are not. You feel the edge of discomfort and realize, "I can stand here. I don't break." And as you strengthen yourself physically and mentally, something subtle happens. Your need for revenge begins to shrink. Not because what happened was acceptable, it was, but because you are no longer defined by it. You're too busy building, too occupied refining your character, too committed to becoming someone who cannot be easily destabilized. That's real intimidation, by the way, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Guard your speech too. Betrayal tempts you to vent endlessly, to seek validation through repetition of the story. Resist that urge. Speak when necessary. Share when helpful, but don't let the narrative consume your identity. You are not the one who was betrayed. You are the one who chose discipline afterward. There's a difference. And the second identity carries power. At night, conduct a brief Stoic review. Sit quietly and ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What will I improve tomorrow? Be honest but not cruel. This isn't a courtroom, it's a workshop. You are shaping yourself deliberately. Over time, this habit builds a deep, quiet pride, the kind that doesn't need applause. You may still feel anger, that's human. The Stoics never asked you to be stone. They asked you to be sovereign. Feel the emotion but don't obey it. Let it pass through you like a storm that doesn't uproot the tree. Your roots are your discipline, your routines, your principles, your self-command. Strengthen them daily. And remember this: self-respect is not granted by others. It's generated by alignment between your values and your actions. When you act in accordance with your standards, even when it's hard, even when it would be easier to lash out, you experience a kind of internal solidity. That solidity becomes your anchor. You stop chasing closure through revenge because you've already found something sturdier, so take this personally. Decide today that you will not let someone else's betrayal lower your standards. Tighten them, sharpen them, refine your habits, train your body. Discipline your mind, protect your speech, keep your promises to yourself. Do it consistently, quietly, relentlessly, not to prove anything to them but to restore something within you. Revenge seeks to balance pain with pain. Discipline balances pain with growth. And growth always wins in the long run. Choose the harder path. Choose the path that demands more of you. Because every disciplined action whispers the same message. I am still who I say I am. I am not undone. I am not defined by this. I govern myself. That is how you reclaim your self-respect. Not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. And once you've done that, you won't need revenge. You'll have something far more powerful yourself. Number 6, use silence as strength. When you've been betrayed, your first instinct is rarely silence. It's fire. It's the sharp urge to correct, to expose, to retaliate. Your mind races with speeches you want to deliver and messages you want to send. But this is exactly where your power is tested. The Stoic path asks you to pause right there in that heated moment and choose something far more difficult and far more commanding: silence. Not the silence of weakness, not the silence of avoidance, the silence of strength. You don't go quiet because you have nothing to say. You go quiet because you refuse to let pain dictate your character. As Epictetus reminded us, it's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters. Silence is a reaction. And when chosen deliberately, it becomes a shield. You need to understand this clearly. Betrayal tempts you to perform. It pulls you toward dramatic displays, toward proving your innocence or their guilt. But the Stoic method calls you inward. It asks you to anchor yourself in what you can control: your judgments, your words, your actions. You cannot control their behavior. You cannot reverse what has been done. But you can control whether you amplify the damage by surrendering your composure. So instead of answering every accusation, instead of defending your worth to someone who has already shown their stance, you practice restraint. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Silence is the physical expression of that realization. It is you saying without speaking that your mind is not for sale. This kind of silence is not passive. It is active discipline. You choose not to feed the situation. You choose not to escalate. You choose not to give your emotional energy to someone who has already mishandled your trust. That choice is strength. It might feel unnatural at first. Your chest might tighten. Your thoughts may pound against the walls of your restraint. Good. That tension is the training ground. Every time you resist the impulse to lash out, you reinforce your sovereignty. You are telling yourself, "My peace is worth more than my pride." Silence also disrupts the cycle of revenge. Revenge thrives on reaction. It feeds on visible pain, on outrage, on proof that you've been wounded. When you go silent, not cold, not bitter, just composed, you interrupt that cycle. You remove yourself from the arena of emotional sparring. And in doing so, you regain clarity. Seneca warned that anger is a brief madness. Think about that. A brief madness. When betrayed, you are most vulnerable to that madness. Silence gives the storm space to pass. It creates a buffer between stimulus and response. And in that buffer, you remember who you are. You don't need to announce your silence. You don't need to make it theatrical. In fact, the quieter it is, the stronger it becomes. Let your restraint be subtle. Let your absence of reaction speak louder than any rebuttal. People expect noise when there is conflict. They expect confrontation. When you offer calm instead, it unsettles expectations. It shifts the dynamic. Not because you're trying to intimidate or manipulate, but because you are anchored. You are not easily provoked, and that steadiness is rare. Now you must practice this intentionally. Don't wait until the next betrayal to experiment with silence. Train for it. Start small. When you feel misunderstood, resist the immediate urge to correct. When criticized unfairly, pause before defending yourself. Count your breath slowly, deliberately. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Let your nervous system settle. This simple act strengthens your capacity to stay composed when stakes are higher. You are conditioning yourself to respond, not react. Another exercise: write out everything you want to say, all of it. The sharp phrases, the wounded questions, the accusations. Get it out of your head and onto paper. Then don't send it, don't share it. Let it sit. Return to it after a day. Notice how the intensity has softened. This is what silence does internally. It metabolizes emotion. It gives your rational mind time to catch up with your wounded heart. Over time, you'll find that many of the things you once felt compelled to say lose their urgency. Silence also forces you to confront your own attachment to validation. Betrayal hurts not only because of the act itself, but because it shakes your sense of worth. You want acknowledgement, you want apology, you want justice. And when those don't come, you feel even more agitated. But the Stoic path asks you to detach from outcomes. Epictetus taught that we suffer when we cling to what is not in our control. An apology is not in your control. Someone's remorse is not in your control. What is in your control is whether you beg for it. Silence is you releasing the demand. Understand this: silence does not mean suppression. You are not burying your pain, you are mastering its expression. There is a difference. Suppression is denial. Stoic silence is conscious restraint. You acknowledge the hurt privately. You reflect on it. You learn from it, but you refuse to let it dictate impulsive behavior. You choose dignity over drama every time. And here's something subtle but powerful: when you remain silent, you create space to observe. Instead of being consumed by reaction, you become the watcher. You notice patterns. You see character clearly. You assess whether this relationship, this dynamic, this environment aligns with your values. Silence sharpens perception. Noise clouds it. If you speak too soon, you often speak from emotion. If you wait, you speak. If you choose to speak at all, from principle. Try this mental exercise daily. Imagine yourself as a fortress, strong walls, calm interior. Outside events may knock at the gates, but they do not dictate what happens inside. Repeat to yourself, I choose my response. Say it until it feels natural, until it becomes instinct. This repetition rewires your reflexes. It turns silence from something you endure into something you wield. You might worry that silence makes you appear weak, that others will think you have nothing to say. Let them think what they want. The Stoics were clear about reputation. It is not yours to control. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly not to be distracted by others' opinions. Your task is not to manage perceptions. Your task is to live in alignment with your values. If your silence is rooted in strength, it will feel different, grounded, intentional, unshaken. And over time, something remarkable happens. The craving for revenge begins to dissolve, not because you forced forgiveness prematurely, but because you outgrew the need to retaliate. Silence gives your higher self room to lead. It cools the heat of humiliation. It steadies the trembling ego. You begin to see betrayal not as a personal attack on your worth, but as a reflection of someone else's character. That shift is freedom. So the next time you feel the surge, the immediate, almost electric desire to respond, pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Relax your jaw. Let the words remain unspoken. Choose silence, not because you are defeated, but because you are disciplined. Not because you are afraid, but because you are strong enough to wait. In that quiet space, you reclaim yourself. And that reclamation is far more powerful than any revenge you could ever execute. Number 7, reframe betrayal as a test of character. When betrayal hits you, it doesn't arrive politely. It crashes through your chest, it tightens your throat, it demands a reaction. And the first instinct, if you're honest, is retaliation. You want balance restored. You want the scales even. But here is where the Stoic path quietly separates itself from impulse. Instead of asking, how do I get back at them? You ask, who do I become because of this? That shift changes everything. You stop seeing betrayal as a wound to avenge and start seeing it as a test to pass. The Stoics were relentless about this distinction. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You've heard that before, maybe even rolled your eyes at it, but now it's personal, now it stings, and that's precisely why it matters. Betrayal is not in your control. Someone else's character never was, but your response, that belongs to you. That is your territory. That is your proving ground. You have to train yourself to pause and reinterpret the pain, not deny it, not suppress it. Reinterpret it. Say to yourself, this is a trial, not a tragedy. A trial. Trials are designed to reveal strength. They don't create virtue out of thin air, they expose whether it's there. When someone betrays you, life is essentially asking, are you governed by your principles or by your emotions? That question is uncomfortable. Sit with it anyway. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Read that again slowly. The betrayal isn't blocking your growth. It is the path to it. This is your chance to practice restraint when revenge feels delicious. This is your chance to choose dignity when pettiness tempts you. This is your chance to solidify your character in a way comfort never could. You must start reframing deliberately. When your mind replays what happened, interrupt it. Gently but firmly. Replace "how could they" with "what does this demand from me?" That one substitution moves you from victimhood to agency. You stop being acted upon and start acting, even if the action is simply refusing to let bitterness take root. And make no mistake, bitterness will try. It will whisper that anger is strength. It will tell you that staying upset proves you care. Don't believe it. Anger that lingers is not power, it's leakage. Ask yourself, who do I want to be in this moment? Do you want to be reactive, sharp-tongued, restless, or composed, measured, steady? The Stoics weren't emotionless statues, they were disciplined interpreters of experience. They knew pain was inevitable, corruption of character was optional. You have that same choice right now. Here's a practical exercise. Sit quietly and write down the virtues you respect most. Courage, patience, integrity, self-control, justice. Pick 3. Now ask, how does this betrayal allow me to practice these? If you value self-control, here is your gym. If you value courage, here is your arena. If you value integrity, here is your audit. You don't build virtue when things are easy. You reveal it when they are not. Seneca wrote, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave." That's not poetic fluff. That's instruction. Gold doesn't complain about the furnace. It endures it and comes out refined. You are being refined right now, whether you like it or not. The only question is whether you will cooperate with the process or resist it. Resisting keeps you stuck in resentment. Cooperating transforms pain into polish. You need to practice cognitive distancing. This is another Stoic habit. Instead of saying, "I was betrayed," say, "A betrayal occurred." Notice the subtle shift. It creates space between you and the event. You are not the betrayal. It is something that happened. That space is where your power lives. Breathe into that space. Lengthen the pause between stimulus and response. Even 5 seconds of deliberate breathing can prevent 5 months of regret. Then examine your judgments. The Stoics were obsessed with this. They believed suffering intensifies not because of events themselves, but because of the story you attach to them. So question your narrative. Are you telling yourself this means you are weak? Replace that with, "This is my opportunity to become stronger." Are you telling yourself this proves people are untrustworthy? Replace that with, "This teaches me discernment." You are not gaslighting yourself. You are choosing a narrative that builds rather than corrodes. Another exercise, imagine your future self 5 years from now. Calm, grounded, respected. Would that version of you seek revenge, or would they see this as a small but formative chapter? Step into that future perspective and borrow its composure. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, imagining difficulties in advance to soften their blow. You can use the same technique in reverse. Imagine your mature self looking back, grateful you chose restraint. Do not misunderstand this reframing as passivity. Reframing betrayal as a test of character does not mean tolerating injustice indefinitely. It means your actions, whatever they are, flow from principle, not spite. If boundaries need to be set, set them calmly. If distance is required, create it without drama. The key is that you are guided by values, not vengeance. When revenge feels seductive, remind yourself what it costs. It costs peace. It costs clarity. It often costs your own standards. The Stoic path asks you to preserve the one thing no one can take from you without your consent, your character. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. That doesn't mean denial. It means refusing to let someone else's wrongdoing dictate your inner state. Make this your daily ritual for the next week. Each morning, repeat, today I may face dishonesty, selfishness, or betrayal. They belong to others. My response belongs to me. This primes your mind. It steadies you. Each evening, review your reactions, not harshly, just honestly. Where did you rise above impulse? Where did you slip? Adjust, refine, continue. You are not being asked to feel nothing. You are being asked to feel deeply without surrendering your direction. There is a quiet strength in that, a formidable calm. When you reframe betrayal as a test, you stop obsessing over the other person's flaws and start fortifying your own virtues. That is empowerment in its purest form. So the next time the memory resurfaces and your chest tightens, pause, straighten your posture, breathe slowly. Say to yourself, this is my test, not a curse, not a life sentence, a test, and you intend to pass it. Number 8, practice emotional detachment daily. When you practice emotional detachment daily, you are not turning yourself into stone. You are not pretending the betrayal didn't hurt. You are not suppressing the anger or the ache or the sense of humiliation that keeps replaying in your mind at inconvenient hours. What you are doing is reclaiming ownership of your inner world. And that is power. The Stoics understood this deeply. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That sentence is not poetic decoration. It is instruction. It is a command, and it is meant for you. Emotional detachment in the Stoic sense is about loosening the grip that events and people have on your nervous system. Betrayal stings because you expected loyalty. You expected fairness. You expected reciprocity. And when that expectation shattered, it felt personal. It felt like a violation of something sacred. But pause here, take a breath. The event has already happened. It exists in the past. What continues is your interpretation of it. Epictetus made this painfully clear when he said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. You don't control their choice. You control the meaning you assign to it. That's where detachment begins. Start practicing this daily, not occasionally. Each morning before the world intrudes, sit quietly for 5 minutes. Bring the betrayal into your mind deliberately. Yes, deliberately. Don't wait for it to ambush you. Look at it head on. Then separate the facts from the story. The fact might be simple. Words were said. Actions were taken. Trust was broken. That is the event. The story is everything else. I was foolish. I can't trust anyone. They ruined everything. Watch those interpretations float up. Don't wrestle them. Just observe them. Label them judgment, assumption, prediction. You will start to see how much suffering comes not from the event, but from the narrative you keep feeding. Detachment also requires discipline with your attention. Your mind wants to replay the betrayal like a looped recording. It wants to refine arguments you never delivered. It wants revenge fantasies. It wants vindication. But every time you indulge that mental theater, you deepen the emotional grooves. So interrupt it. Not angrily, calmly. When you catch yourself spiraling, say internally, this is outside my control. Repeat it until it loses drama and becomes neutral. This is not denial, it is redirection. You are training your mind the way an athlete trains muscle memory. Repetition builds strength. You must also examine your desire for revenge with honesty. Revenge feels like justice. It feels like balance restored. But look closer. It is often just wounded pride demanding applause. Seneca warned that anger, even when justified, is a brief madness. When you act from that madness, you surrender the very dignity you're trying to protect. Emotional detachment means you refuse to let someone else's failure dictate your character. You choose restraint not because they deserve it, but because you do. That distinction matters. Build a daily exercise around voluntary discomfort. This may sound unrelated, but it is foundational. Take a cold shower for 30 seconds. Skip one indulgence you usually allow yourself. Sit in silence without your phone for 10 minutes. These small acts train you to tolerate discomfort without immediate reaction. Betrayal is emotional discomfort. If you cannot endure minor physical or mental unease, you will struggle to endure deeper wounds without lashing out. The Stoics practiced this intentionally. They rehearsed hardship so they would not be enslaved by it. You can do the same. Another practice, negative visualization. Each evening, reflect on the impermanence of relationships, status, approval. Not to become cynical, but to become grounded. Remind yourself that people act according to their own nature, their own fears, their own limitations. Marcus Aurelius advised himself to expect ignorance, selfishness, and ingratitude, not to excuse them, but to avoid surprise. When you stop being shocked by human imperfection, betrayal loses some of its sting. You begin to see it as part of the human condition rather than a targeted cosmic injustice. There is also a subtle shift you must make in identity. If you define yourself by how others treat you, you will always be unstable. Emotional detachment invites you to define yourself by your chosen virtues instead. Ask yourself daily, am I acting with integrity? Am I responding with courage? Am I maintaining self-respect? When your focus shifts to your conduct rather than their behavior, you regain steadiness. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. Write this down and repeat it until it feels solid. Their betrayal is their character. My response is mine. Say it in the morning. Say it when the resentment rises. Say it before sleep. Over time, you will notice space opening up between the memory and your reaction. That space is freedom. Viktor Frankl, though not a classical Stoic, echoed this wisdom when he wrote about the space between stimulus and response. In that space lies your power. Practice living there. You will have days when the anger surges again. That does not mean you failed, it means you are human. Detachment is not a switch you flip. It is a muscle you strengthen. Some days it will tremble, keep training it anyway. Sit with the discomfort without dramatizing it. Notice where it lives in your body. Breathe into it. Remind yourself that feelings are temporary weather patterns, not permanent architecture. Gradually, something unexpected happens. The betrayal stops defining your emotional climate. It becomes a chapter, not the entire book. You may still remember it, you may still feel traces of it, but it no longer controls your tone, your posture, your choices. And that is the real victory. Not revenge, not apology, not external justice, inner sovereignty. So commit to this daily practice. Guard your mind like it is sacred territory. Question your interpretations. Train your tolerance for discomfort. Reflect on impermanence. Anchor yourself in virtue. Repeat Stoic truths until they become reflex. You are not required to harden your heart. You are required to strengthen your discipline. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is clarity. It is the calm recognition that no one can betray your character unless you let them. And you will not let them. Number 9, forgive for your freedom, not their benefit. Forgive for your freedom, not their benefit. Let that settle into you before you rush past it. You are not forgiving to excuse what happened. You are not forgiving to pretend it didn't hurt. And you are certainly not forgiving to reward someone who broke your trust. You forgive because you are tired of carrying a weight that was never meant to live in your chest. You forgive because every time you replay the betrayal in your mind, you tighten the chains around your own ankles. The Stoics would look at you gently and remind you that your peace is your responsibility. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The betrayal is outside events. The resentment, that is yours to release. Right now, you may feel that holding on to anger gives you power. It feels sharp. It feels protective. It whispers that if you stay bitter, you will never be fooled again. But look closely. Is it strength or is it constant agitation? Is it protection or is it a low burning fire that keeps you from resting? When you refuse to forgive, you remain emotionally entangled with the very person you claim to be done with. Your thoughts orbit them. Your mood shifts because of them. Your inner world reacts to shadows. That is not freedom. That is silent captivity. The Stoic path asks you to become sovereign over yourself. Epictetus insisted, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That is not a cute quote for social media. It is a demand. It is a challenge thrown at your feet. You cannot control betrayal. You cannot rewrite the past, but you can decide whether this wound becomes your identity or your initiation. Forgiveness is not a favor you grant someone else. It is the decision to stop letting their actions rent space in your head. You need to understand something deeply. Forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. It does not mean access. It does not mean trust restored. You can forgive and still walk away. You can forgive and still set boundaries so firm they feel like stone. Forgiveness is internal. Boundaries are external. The Stoics would never ask you to be naive. They would ask you to be disciplined, to guard your character, to guard your tranquility. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Delay your reaction long enough and you begin to see that revenge is a reflex, not a strategy. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is deliberate. It is chosen. So how do you actually forgive for your freedom? You start by shifting the story you are telling yourself. Stop narrating the betrayal as proof that you are weak, unworthy, or foolish. Instead, view it as evidence that you are human and capable of trust. That is not a flaw. That is strength misused by someone else. There is a difference. Write this down. Their actions reveal their character. My response reveals mine. Sit with that sentence. Repeat it until it loses its sting and gains clarity. Then practice what the Stoics called the discipline of perception. When the memory resurfaces, and it will, pause. Notice the surge in your body, the tightening jaw, the rush of heat. Don't suppress it, observe it. Tell yourself calmly, this is just a thought, this is just a sensation. You are not the wave, you are the watcher of the wave. Each time you create that small space between stimulus and reaction, you loosen resentment's grip. This is a daily exercise. It is not glamorous. It is quiet work. But it builds inner muscle. You also need to confront your attachment to revenge. Be honest. Does a part of you fantasize about them regretting what they did? About them suffering in equal measure? Of course it does. You are human. But ask yourself, if that happened, would your peace truly return? Or would you simply find a new reason to replay the past? Revenge promises closure, yet rarely delivers it. It ties your emotional well-being to someone else's downfall. That is a dangerous bargain. Freedom means your peace does not depend on their punishment. Here's a practical exercise. Each morning for the next week, spend 5 minutes visualizing yourself completely detached from the betrayal. Not denying it, not minimizing it, simply unaffected by it. Imagine hearing their name and feeling nothing but neutrality. Imagine remembering what happened without your pulse rising. This is not coldness. This is mastery. Your mind may resist at first. That's fine. Keep practicing. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, imagining adversity to reduce its emotional power. You can reverse it here. Imagine emotional freedom to make it familiar. Another exercise, write a letter you will never send. In it, express everything: anger, disappointment, confusion. Don't censor yourself. Then at the end, add a final paragraph that begins with, "I release this for my own peace." Not because they deserve it, because you deserve calm. Read that last paragraph out loud. Feel the resistance. Then read it again. Over time, your nervous system will start to believe what your words are practicing. Forgiveness is also an act of self-respect. When you cling to bitterness, you allow someone else's worst moment to dictate your emotional climate. You deserve better than that. You deserve mornings that are not clouded by yesterday's injury. You deserve sleep unbroken by imaginary arguments. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that people act out of ignorance. That doesn't excuse harm, but it reframes it. Many betrayals are born from weakness, fear, or selfishness. Seeing that clearly can cool the urge for retaliation. You are not excusing them. You are understanding the mechanics of flawed humanity. And here is the hard truth. Sometimes your pride resists forgiveness more than your pain does. Pride says, if I forgive, I look weak. But the Stoics would ask you, who is truly weak? The person who cannot let go, or the person who chooses inner steadiness over emotional chaos? Strength is not loud. It is controlled. It is measured. It is calm in the face of insult. When you forgive for your freedom, you step into that quiet strength. You don't have to feel warm toward the person who hurt you. That is not the goal. The goal is indifference. Clean, steady indifference. The kind that allows you to focus on your own growth instead of their failure. Redirect your energy. Channel it into discipline, health, study, creation. Every minute you invest in yourself is a minute not wasted on resentment. This is how you reclaim your life, not through confrontation but through construction. So make a decision, not a dramatic declaration but a quiet commitment. Decide that your peace matters more than your pride. Decide that your future deserves more attention than your past. Each time anger rises, remind yourself, I choose freedom. Say it until it becomes instinct. Say it until forgiveness stops feeling like surrender and starts feeling like sovereignty. You are not forgiving to make them comfortable. You are forgiving to make yourself whole. You are stepping out of the prison of reaction and into the open air of self-command. That is the Stoic method. That is your power. And it is available to you right now in this moment if you are willing to let go. Number 10, turn the wound into wisdom. Imagine for a moment that betrayal has just knocked the wind out of you, left you staggering in its aftermath, and you feel the sharp sting of trust shattered. That sting, raw and unrelenting, is where the choice lies, not in the hands of the person who hurt you, not in the cruelty or negligence of the world, but in your own response. You can let this wound fester, turn it into anger, resentment, or a quiet bitterness that gnaws at your peace. Or you can do something far more radical, far more liberating. You can turn the wound into wisdom. The Stoics teach us that the obstacle itself becomes the path. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, avoid suffering, he said. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That's not just a line to admire, it's a call to action. Every betrayal is a doorway to understanding, if only you are willing to walk through it with your eyes wide open. Turning a wound into wisdom starts with recognition. You have to stare at the pain without flinching. Accept it, name it, feel it, but don't allow it to dictate your every move. Write it down, speak it aloud to yourself, or sit quietly and trace the edges of your hurt. By acknowledging what has happened, you begin the first alchemy of transforming suffering into insight. You are not your pain, but your awareness of it is where the transformation begins. Seneca reminds us, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Your mind, much like your body, grows stronger when you refuse to shrink from the lessons hidden in adversity. Next, you dissect the betrayal, not with judgment but with clarity. Ask yourself, what patterns were present that I didn't see? Where did I place my trust too hastily, and why? What assumptions did I make about people that now require recalibration? This is not about blaming yourself. It is about extracting intelligence from experience. Think of it as mining for insight. Pain can either poison you or refine you, and the choice is entirely in your hands. This reflection is active, not passive. Take a notebook and write a letter to yourself detailing what you have learned about human behavior, boundaries, and your own tendencies. Reading it later, you'll find that the sting dulls as understanding sharpens. Once you've dissected the situation, transform your understanding into principles that guide your life forward. Stoicism emphasizes living in accordance with nature and reason. That means recognizing that people act according to their own judgment and character, not necessarily yours. You can't control betrayal, but you can control your reaction. Your wisdom grows when you see that your power lies not in revenge or retaliation, but in discernment, in choosing whom to trust, how to protect your heart, and how to proceed without resentment. Ask yourself daily, does this action or thought serve my growth, or is it feeding the old wound? Practice choosing the path that cultivates your virtue, rather than your vengeance. Another critical step is converting the energy of the wound into productive action. Pain can be a teacher, but only if you actively listen. Channel your feelings into habits that strengthen your character. Meditate on what integrity means for you, train your mind to respond instead of react, and commit to actions that reflect the person you aspire to be. Let the betrayal sharpen your judgment, not cloud it. For instance, when someone breaches your trust, let it reinforce your commitment to clarity in communication, to establishing boundaries, and to developing patience and resilience. Each slight, each broken promise, each deceit becomes a stepping stone toward a mind more vigilant, a heart more discerning, and a soul more steadfast. Reflection alone is not enough. You need ritualized practice to internalize the wisdom you've mined from suffering. Each day, ask yourself, how can I apply today the insight I gained from past wounds? The Stoics were not armchair philosophers. They trained themselves through exercises, daily contemplations, and deliberate acts of virtue. Visualize scenarios where betrayal might occur again. How will you respond with calm and reason rather than impulse? This mental rehearsal creates a buffer against future pain and solidifies the wisdom you've gleaned. Your mind becomes a reservoir of preparedness rather than a battlefield of lingering hurt. Importantly, turning your wound into wisdom requires patience. Transformation is not instantaneous. You may feel the temptation to return to old patterns, to lash out, to ruminate. This is natural, but each time you resist, each time you choose awareness over reaction, you fortify your character. Recognize that betrayal, while painful, is finite, but the lessons you extract are enduring. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Every time you respond with intention rather than impulse, your wound is distilled a little further into wisdom. Your pain gradually becomes a compass instead of a cage. Practical exercises cement this transformation. Daily journaling allows you to revisit the wound with distance and clarity, writing down the thoughts that arise, and reflecting on the principles you wish to embody. Meditation, even for a few minutes, creates space between instinct and action, allowing wisdom to surface before anger or hurt takes the wheel. Breathing exercises tether you to your body, reminding you that you are present, capable, and in control. You can even create a wisdom list, cataloging insights gained from betrayals past, noting how each lesson shapes your current choices. Over time, this list becomes a map of your resilience and a blueprint for navigating life with discernment. Finally, remember the purpose of this transformation: freedom. Wisdom mined from betrayal liberates you from repeating cycles of pain, from obsession over what others did or didn't do, from the corrosive pull of revenge. You become the steward of your own mind, the guardian of your own heart. The wound is no longer a source of weakness. It becomes a source of authority, a well of understanding that informs every decision, every relationship, every interaction. You are not defined by the betrayal, but by the wisdom you extract from it. So take a deep breath, feel the sting fully, and then choose to rise above it. Examine the betrayal, harvest its lessons, codify its insights, practice them daily, and let them shape the person you are becoming. This is the Stoic method in action, turning every wound into wisdom, every hardship into growth, every betrayal into a teacher. When you do this consistently, when you make this your practice, you will notice a profound shift. The pain doesn't vanish, but it no longer owns you. You walk through life with eyes open, mind alert, heart resilient, and spirit unshakable. And that, more than revenge, more than resentment, is the ultimate victory. This approach asks you not just to endure life's slings and arrows, but to convert them into something precious: knowledge, foresight, and inner strength. Each betrayal is a silent mentor, whispering lessons if you only listen. Commit to that listening. Commit to learning. Let the wound be your workshop and wisdom your craft. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." The wound has already happened. The question is, will it leave a scar of bitterness, or will it bloom into wisdom? The choice and the power are yours. Would you like me to expand this further into a step-by-step daily Stoic exercise plan for turning betrayal into wisdom? It could make this guidance actionable over a full month. Betrayal can feel like fire in your chest, urging you to strike back, to balance the scales, to prove you weren't weak. But the Stoic path asks something braver of you. It asks you to master yourself. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Let that sink in. You don't heal by harming. You heal by rising. Choose dignity over drama, discipline over impulse, growth over grudges. Start today. Guard your character. Strengthen your mind. Walk away cleaner than you were wounded. That is power. That is freedom.